Hello and welcome to the third video in this series that I've recorded with Kicki Hansard from Birth Bliss Doulas. Now, in this final video in this series, we are going to be diving down deep into the aspect of whether your emotional needs are getting in the way of you having a successful birth business. And so whether or not there are things that are going on that are preventing you perhaps from fully charging your rate, from maybe you're overstepping the mark in terms of doing so much for the people that you work with that it's not sustainable, you're not being financially recompensed. So why might you be doing that? What else is going on? How can you overcome this? How can you address it? And so those are the kind of things that we're going to be talking about in today's video. So I hope that you find it useful.
I'm now really interested in maybe how the emotional need piece might affect the whole business piece.
Yes.
With doulas, because we've talked about how emotional needs might just affect your ability to do your job as a doula.
Yeah.
But what about your ability to keep your job as a doula?
Yeah.
And to continue, to be a sustainable doula, to be a happy doula, to be one that, is able to stay being a doula, not make it a part-time job or a hobby, because a doula isn't a doula if it's just a hobby, right? You've really got to, if you really want to serve those women, you've just got to jump in feet first and do it.
Yeah.
So how much of this emotional stuff do you think is impacting the business stuff? What do you reckon?
I reckon massively, don't you? I mean, it must do. It will do, because not only will you get your burnout because you're doing so much and not have the money coming in, or you'll get frustrated because you can't change anything much, because no one's listening to you. So, I mean, emotionally, you're thinking, oh, what's the point?
Yeah.
They just don't get it. And then I'm not going to do this anymore and do something else. So, and the charging bit and charging for your services, because it is a caring job. It's about offering that anyone in a care job doesn't earn a lot of money. It's like and because we're women, we're meant to be doing it anyway, caring for people for free. So it has a huge impact. I mean, that's the biggest thing that women struggle with, but how do I tell? I even do an exercise where we actually practice saying how much we charge, like part of an interview when someone asks you, so what's the cost? If you can't say it confidently, they're not gonna want to hire you. If you're like, I'm about £12 an hour. It sounds like you're asking their permission. Like, will you pay that? And that's the other thing, that desperation, which is also another emotional need of being wanted. I want them to like me.
Yeah.
So I will agree to everything that they ask me. Will you do this? Will you do that? I will just say yes, 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 yes. Because I want them to like me, and I want them to hire me, because if they like me, they're going to hire me.
Yeah.
Which isn't, you might not be the right doula for these people. So it's that you cannot take the emotional needs from a person out of, the doula equation.
I was really interested in what you said there earlier, which is like women do lots of caring work for free. That's what we do, isn't it? And it's like, that's a really interesting belief. There's going to be a ton of beliefs that women are bringing into this work.
Yes.
And that is just such a classic. And yeah, you can just see that and go, yeah, I get that. Because yes, we are expected to do that. Childcare.
Yeah.
That so many women are facing the situation where the husband's just going to be like, well, you'll be the one staying at home, right?
Yeah.
And it's like, really? Why? It's just an assumption in society that you're going to be the one doing that. So I totally get where that's coming from. But I think it's really important that doulas don't bring that, which is, again, easier said than done, to their work. Because how can they honestly make a good, honest living with this? And, going back to the awesomeness that is doulas, go out there confidently selling your services requires you to feel confident about your work. And so, but if you're never really being a doula, if you're maybe doing one doula job a month or every 2 months, then you're going to lack confidence in that area. So you're not going to be able to bring yourself into that and put yourself out there in the same way. And so you're just holding back, you're kind of clipping your wings, I think, as a doula, and your ability to really make the positive impact in birth and for women that you could be doing if only you were charging your full rate, and if only you were stopping doing the free work. Like the free work, I think there's definitely room for free work, but you've got to have real clear boundaries about what is going to be free and when you charge when you do that. And it definitely isn't going to be, in my opinion anyway, the stuff that do up front. I've been really burnt badly by this personally, so I'm kind of speaking from experience with that, where I, coming into a new sector, going, yeah, I'll do this stuff for free. No, the minute I started putting boundaries in, it's amazing how stuff started shifting around my business. And so it's about being clear on your own boundaries and what you deserve. Like, I've worked with quite a few people at the moment around this idea of deservability. Do I deserve to have a flourishing business doing this? That's a really interesting one. Some women don't deserve, they feel they deserve this.
Yeah.
Or they don't, who me? Why should I get this success? It kind of doesn't sit really well with them, because there's all this kind of emotional stuff that's murking around below the surface that's getting in the way. And I kind of see that a lot with some of the women that I'm working with, and it's kind of frustrating.
So do I. I see them all the time in my doula courses. And so it is frustrating for me, because I'm thinking, well, you are perfect as you are, but you need to believe that yourself. And at the moment you don't. So, well, why would anyone hire me? And, I haven't been to any births, and, or I couldn't charge. I think I'd just do the first few jobs for free. And I'll just tell them all, you're just going to be disappointed. And then they will say, it didn't really work out for me. Well, what did you never thought it would in the first place. If you actually think it's going to work out. And then people will say to me, well, you're so professional, Kicki. Well, what does that mean?
It means you charge your rate.
Yeah, exactly. Being professional is not hard. You don't have to be, wear a suit to be professional. Being professional is just being, actually, I think I'm worth this. I think this is my job. And also, you don't have to hire me. I'm more than happy to help you find another doula, but this is what I charge. And I feel comfortable with that. I don't get angry with them because they're trying to knock my price down. I just go, well, I understand, price is important, but I can help you find another doula. Yeah. It's that kind of confidence that so many women lack. And I see that because many women that come to be doulas have been home looking after their family, like we were saying earlier. And now they feel that they've got nothing else. That's what they do. So they're thinking, and I'm telling them, but that's what you've been doing is what you're going to be doing as a doula, but you're going to charge for it. And you're going to show other women how to be a good mom, or show them ways or ideas of how they might want to be parents. It's kind of carrying that on. And you don't have to be like business, like doesn't mean all those things that you say about women in business, like bossy and forthright and like a bloke, It's not about that. It's about just being authentic to who you are. And that doesn't matter what you are. You might be loud, you might be quiet, you might be tall, you might be short, old, young, have never given birth before, or have 10 kids. You just don't restrict yourself by limiting what you have, because you think I don't have all these other things that everyone else seems to have. And I think it's frustrating. So that, again, the emotions behind how you feel about yourself is actually the most important thing. And I say that to women. They say, well, I want to be a doula. What's it like? Do I get any work? It depends on you. Yeah. Totally, I say.
And I love the bit you just touched on, authenticity, which I'm a huge, huge fan of authenticity. And in my previous work as a coach, I was helping people to really articulate what their authentic brand was. And for me, I think there's so much scope within doula world to really, face up to who you are. What is really important to you? What is your philosophy on life, on birth? And to really be unashamedly that. Maybe you are the home birth queen. Maybe you're the birth in the stream queen, and that you want to be the one that supports the free birthing woman, and it's all hippy dippy, and that is your thing, and you're going to bring joss sticks, and you're going to do the Buddhist chants with her, and that's what you're going to do. Maybe you are, you come from a Muslim faith, and you're going to be able to support your woman from that perspective, and you've got a very different perspective. Maybe you're very pragmatic. Maybe you're very, whatever your philosophy is, really just hone that, own it. Step into it with 2 feet and just say, I'm not going to accept any woman unless she's in line with my philosophy, because then you will attract women that they will know straight away whether they want to work with you, because you will just hit it off, and you will also be able to repel all those that just don't want to work with you, and you will save a ton of time going to client sessions that are just a complete waste of time, because you're not you're not on the same page, where birth is such a personal, sacred event. You need to be with people that people need to click with you, because there's a resonance with values or philosophy going on there. Like if you're going to be there looking after the mother in the birth, and she's going to want you to prepare a little bit of food to keep her hungry, or postnatally or whatever, then if you're like a vegan and she's like a meat eater, this is just not going to work out, is it? Because you're going to be like hating seeing what's in her fridge.
Yeah.
So you just need to be really open about who you are and own that, and not think that all those bits about who you are mean that you'll be rejected, and then we've got this big rejection piece coming in. But I think so many people are like, well, I'm going to say yes to all this because my fear is fear of rejection. I think a ton of people have got a fear of rejection, and then I think I've got it. I've had it. I've got the T-shirt somewhere, and I was amazed when I worked on clearing my own fear of rejection. I was amazed at the impact that had on what I was doing in my business, and what I stopped saying yes to that I realised wasn't even right for me. I was just saying yes to stuff that wasn't right, just because I needed to say yes, because I didn't want to. I didn't want to reject myself. It really sends you in a right old tangle when you have these things controlling you, and the minute you can kind of let go of them, you're like, I didn't even want to do that. Why was I wasting my energy on that? And the same with clients. That was never going to pan out, that birth. It didn't feel right. No wonder she wanted somebody else. And you could save yourself a lot of heartache, I think, just by being upfront and authentic. But that does mean looking in the mirror, and that can be terrifying.
Absolutely terrifying. But I it sounds really good, this. I'm going to have to sign up. Because I know that piece about saying yes to everything, it's kind of interesting, because you're thinking, well, if I don't, what if I miss out? What if that's my thing? What if that's something really good, but it doesn't really fit in? I don't really have time, but maybe this is it. This is really important. But I kind of got over that. You have to, in the end, you're just thinking, you just have to go with your gut feeling, which often is also the right thing to do. But it's this whole thing of, it's nice to be needed. Now someone's asking me to do something. Wow, they must like me. It's the whole thing of being liked and being accepted, and rejection is tough. And I think that's a really valuable piece for doulas, because you will, even though it's not a rejection, that's what it feels like if someone doesn't hire you. If you go for that interview, or you might be going for 10 interviews and no one wants to hire you. It's like, how can you not take that personally? But how do you deal with that? How do you actually look at that as learning experiences and realize, actually, there's something I need to change? What am I bringing to these interviews that making everyone kind of not want to hire me? It's not because I'm bad, it's something else. And it's probably something like that. Those things that you carry around with you that you need to clear.
But it could be that, on the face of it, you're sitting there on the couch looking very relaxed, but actually energetically she's feeling you doing this. Give me the business, give me the business. And that can feel really, for those women that kind of pick up on that kind of stuff, you can kind of feel the suffocation coming through, like, not sure I can handle that kind of neediness energy.
Yes.
In my birth, that's too much for me. Yeah. And that desperation is really, really going to come through. But I want to touch back on the needing, constantly being needed thing. And just in a different environment, when I was in the corporate world, I was very good at what I did. And so people kept coming to me because they needed my help. And the problem with being really good is you're needed a lot, and then you have no time to do what you really want to be doing. Yeah. And I think there's a bit to learn there in doulas, is that, this neediness means you might get sucked into doing that really long birth that you're not really getting paid for, because it's just gone on forever and it wasn't right for you anyway, because you didn't click, and maybe because you didn't click, the woman hasn't able to really maybe surrender in the way that maybe she would if there's somebody else that she clicked with. And so you just need to not get involved in situations that aren't right for you. Mm-hmm. But you are, and so you're not helping yourself.
No,
and you can, like, there's a guy that he really needed to get over the rejection thing, so I think he just deliberately set out to just call a load of people, like loads, did a load of cold calling just to get used to being rejected, and went out on the street and just trying to, like, talk to people, like, said, let me give you a hug, and there are loads of people going, no, constantly rejected. So the point, he's just got, I'm not really bothered about being rejected now, I've just had that worn out. But that could take a bit of time, right? How many people do you need to get rejected by to suddenly feel okay with being rejected and be toughened to it, kind of thing? And there are much quicker ways to kind of achieve that. So how long have you got? with what you're doing, you know.
Yes.
Like, I'm one for shortcuts. I love a bit of a shortcut. So for me, I want to get there, sort it, move on to the next. But anyway.
But it's so interesting because all this is not enough. This is the biggest piece. Do you know what? The doula prep course should come after a believe in yourself course, or should be part of it. I mean, I do try and my course has got a lot of stuff. I do try and do a lot of that. I think that's why it's like therapy for 4 days.
Yeah.
I do try to get the element of value yourself, but you know, you can't say to someone you need to be more confident.
No, you can't just tell them that.
Because it's here. If you don't believe it, it doesn't matter how many people tell you whatever positive things. You know, you just need to get rid of that.
Yeah.
That I keep going back to the rucksack. Rucksack.
But it is that. I think the rucksack analogy is brilliant because I call this stuff head trash, and it is like
it's the same. Yeah,
it's the same thing. And head trash. The reason I love the term head trash is because we all have head trash.
Yeah.
But the great thing about when you think about trash that you put in your bin at home, is at some point you wanted that, you needed it. You probably went out into the shop and bought it, you know, and it served a purpose.
Yeah.
But now it doesn't, and you've thrown it away. And the same with all this emotional stuff that we've got. We needed that belief at some point, maybe when we were 3 or 4.
Yeah.
We needed to have this need for whatever it was, again, when probably we were a child. But we're kind of carrying around this stuff like we still need it, like it's still useful. But it's not. It's just now getting in the way. So if you imagine that you know, you've got all this rubbish that you've acquired in your life, and you've never put the rubbish bin out, and it's just gathering in your front room.
Yes.
And you're carrying this around with you all the time, right? On an emotional basis. So the best thing to do is literally just open the bag and go, right, what have I got in here?
Yeah.
Boof, 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 and literally just start clearing it. And I was working with somebody on tocophobia recently, and we literally, she couldn't see what was in the bag. She just knew she had this really big, heavy, phobic birth thing there, but she didn't know what it was. So we had to open it, look inside, and then she could start like clearing the stuff inside. And my goodness, now she had a C-section yesterday and she was so excited going into birth. Like, she literally was so excited, and she was in pieces when we started working together. And so it is about opening the bag, looking at what's inside, what's weighing you down. Is it your fear of rejection? Is it your need to be loved? You know, there's nothing wrong with needing to be loved, but if you can take the emotional need out and just give love without the need for it back, that's true unconditional love. That's where there's true power. That's when you can really help a woman. And the thing is, when you're going into the birth, if you think about how much you give going into the birth, how much it takes from you to hold the space, and if there's when you're giving out, if there's an emotional need that needs for you to get something back, then you're going to be spent. Whereas if you're coming from unconditional love just goes. It just, you're not spending anything, you're just giving because there's unlimited resources of it.
Yeah.
So if you can get to a place of unconditional love rather than an exchange need because of your own energetic imbalance, then you're not going to get as spent in the same way, and you can give so much more, you know. So it kind of, getting rid of that, I call it head trash, is just the place to start. You can lighten the load, and that enables you to respond flexibly, nimbly, emotionally, not respond triggered, all that good stuff. And you can, and also with my work around trauma, is one of the ways that you can help protect yourself against trauma is by building a strong foundation of emotional resilience. And that is, again, by reducing things like your head trash, by getting that out of the way. So you are really emotionally very strong. You know, it takes a lot to knock you off. Whereas if it doesn't take a lot to knock you off, of course you're going to get affected by all these births because you're emotionally vulnerable, you know. And I think it, you know, especially with birth, you absolutely need to do that kind of work because you're not going to help the woman in the same way. I'm ranting again now, aren't I? No,
you're right. Because actually what you will find is all doulas are very, very emotional people. Very emotional people. Because they want to go into this work because they want to help, they want to support, they want to nurture, they want to, for all those reasons, which are good reasons, but if they are for themselves to feel, if it's only there because they want to make themselves feel better, or like you say, satisfy their own needs, that's not right. You're not doing, you know, you're not doing yourself or your clients any favors. You're actually, it's just all wrong, and you might not be aware of that, and obviously not. And that's, so therefore often is a lot of upset in the doula world as well. As in doulas getting upset with each other when it's all their own stuff again. Yeah, but I should be, this is what doulas should be like. No, that's not what doulas should be like. They should be like this. And then you have all this argument when actually who knows what a doula should be like? I didn't know.
There isn't a should. It's about, she just needs to be there to support the woman, and you need there's infinite versions of women out there, therefore we need infinite versions of a doula, you know.
Exactly.
And there isn't one way. There is, you just need to be like water, you know, flexible, go with the flow, fit around the rock that you've been given. You know, not kind of be this kind of rigid thing that can't, you know, go with it, and not definitely have that flexibility. So so I'm just wondering whether or not we need to lead into more directly around my self-care thing. We've hinted at it quite a bit, haven't we? Whether we need to, or should I do that as a separate video?
No, but we should probably say so. But we should, because we don't want it to feel like we're kind of
leaving them dangling.
No, exactly. We should say something. So actually, the reason, well, not the reason, but one of the, as we've been in previous talks, we should say something that the reason why we are doing these 3 videos in the first place is because the times we've been talking, and I have experienced some of your services, not quite true, but in a way it is, I wanted to be able to offer something to, you know, the doula world, but especially my doulas. I don't mean my doulas, but the doulas, you know, I really want them to, because I want them to be a step above the rest.
Yeah.
For now, and then obviously this will go to all doulas, but you know, I want it to be like an exclusive for Birth Bliss Academy.
Yeah.
Like a roll-up program.
Yeah.
You call it like a... Yeah. It's not roll-up. It's when you're testing something. Like
a pilot.
Yeah, that's it. Pilot.
Yeah, pilot. Sexy pilot.
Yeah. We're piloting this. So I don't know how we would say that. So
maybe we wrap it in that kind of like that the almost like, not the teaser, but almost we maybe like, there's that bit we had at the beginning, which maybe we could, I don't know, we can maybe... I could do a bit of editing around that first bit that we did. It was a little bit jarring until we got into the flow. But we can now say, hey, look, we've done this. We've been chatting and we've recorded it all because there's, And you can say, you know, I've worked with Alexia and I've, with the work and the chat that we've had, and also, because, you know, you were interested in doing the fearless birthing training. And so actually recognise the emotional need. And I really wanted to do that, but I ended up going around China. Or maybe not going into that detail. I don't know. Maybe that might not be relevant. But to say, hey, this is really needed. And so we've been chatting about all this, and the reason we're chatting about all this is because I don't know, because basically all that stuff I can offer now is all online. And so thinking about so I've got all the technique how to do the clearance, and then what I'm going to do, I'll add on top of that, is almost give them a roadmap to go through working on their shit. So the first one will be now use it to work on this stuff. Week 2, use it to work on this stuff. Now your homework this week is to do work on this stuff, or whatever, not week, or it could be every 2 weeks, whatever. And so, so it's a program that when they get to the end of it, they should be in a much better position. And much stronger, and they can continue using it all the time, and then help with each other with it. So
why don't you tell us a little bit about your program? So Alexia, we've been talking it now, you know, for a while on different topics. And I know you have something that you can offer to the Birth Bliss Doula Academy, as well as myself. I mean, I'm really keen to go through this program as well. So what is it? Can you tell us more about what you have on offer?
So basically the technique that I use, it's the technique that I use to get over my own tocophobia. And so when I was first pregnant, I didn't realise I had tocophobia. I had a load of fear. In my first trimester, I wanted a C-section because I was so terrified. And I happened to be training in a new therapy at the time. And so then I learned, somebody told me that birth could be pain-free without drugs. And it's like, oh, really? I didn't know this. So how did I not know this at the age that I was? But I realised, I learned about birth, and I learned the link between fear and pain in birth. So that got me onto wanting to clear my fears. And I used this new therapy that I've just been trained in to clear my fears. But it was a therapy that you use, you know, with with somebody else doing it to you. Whereas I had to adapt it, because I was one of the first people trained in it. I had to adapt it so that I could use it on myself, because I was pregnant and there weren't anybody else that I could work with, because there was only a few of us. And so that's what I did, and I used it to clear all my own fears. And in doing that, I kind of made it my own, really. And I used myself, and I managed to get myself to a place in one trimester. I turned myself completely around and changed my C-section plan to a home birth plan. And I ended up having an amazing 6-hour pain-free home birth first time round. And I was like, that's a fluke, right? That's a fluke. That didn't really work. Was it really my stuff? I didn't know. And it only came to when it was baby number 2, when I was able to repeat that experience, that I knew that this stuff was worthwhile. So I started really honing it. And I'd honed it a lot in the short period, in the 4 years between, by using it with lots of other people. So I've refined this therapy, and I've called it the head trash clearance method. And the reason that I've called it that is because I've made it much easier. I've put it into steps, and I've made it much easier that you can use on yourself. And it's been, now it's been tested for a number of years on lots of people. I'm getting loads of feedback. So now I've applied it specifically to the birth world and made it my fearless birth preparation approach. But one thing I've noticed, like from chats with you, from chats with the people I have on the podcast, is the need for self-care in the birth world. And so I really want to turn it around and make it available to people within the birth world so they can use it on themselves. So I've adapted this whole technique now into a self-care program where you can use the head trash clearance method, and by tackling certain things that I know that you're going to need to work on. So, for example, we've talked about emotional triggers. We've talked about the life stuff. We talked about your values, whether you disrespect is a thing for you, whether integrity is a thing for you. All those things. So to bring all that, work on all that in nice, an organised manner. What your fears are. Have you got a fear of rejection? Have you got a fear of what missing out? You hinted at fear of missing out earlier. To really bring all that stuff out step by step, so that you can, in a nice, organised way, work through your stuff, so that you come out at the end being much lighter. You talked about having like a rucksack of stuff on your back, and I've talked about head trash being the stuff that you carry around with you. By basically picking at it along a nice program, a nice sort of program of work, you can lighten that load so that you can just let go of this stuff. And by the end of doing that, you will know that tool so well that you can use it in the moment. So I use this tool. There's a speedy version that I used in between contractions on my first birth, where I'll get a bit graphic now, baby's head was crowning, came out a couple of times, ambulance crew in the front room, and the midwife said, if she doesn't come out in the next contraction, we're taking you in. And I was like, there's no way I'm going into hospital, no way. And I realised in that moment I had a fear of the pain of the ring of fire. So I used it like literally in that contraction, and she came out the next time, because I realised my fear was holding me in. It was stopping her from coming out. So that's how quick you can use it. So imagine, once you start becoming familiar with using this on yourself, you could take yourself out as a doula in the birth room. If there is something going on, just go to the toilet, quickly clear something that's come up for you, go back in and be ready, emotionally clear, to be present, to hold the space again. And you can look after yourself. You can do all this stuff after birth to sort of help you get back to a good place if you've had a difficult one. You can do some prep work before you go in, knowing that the dad has got he's got a way of talking to you that really annoys you. So work on all that stuff so that you don't get annoyed by the dad. This means you've got a tool that you can use once you've done all that clearance work to really enable you to kind of free yourself from all that emotional crap that is standing in the way of you being an amazing doula. And just imagine if you then started using it on all the stuff that's stopping you from charging your worth. Imagine what is getting in the way. So that is what the program is. It's basically helping you to use the head trash clearance method to clear your stuff bit by bit in a supported way, so that you can be more emotionally clear and light in your work as a doula. How does that sound?
Yeah, that sounds brilliant. Absolutely. I think this is a huge missing piece for all birth workers. But I mean, my biggest, my passion is doulas. So if doulas can add this to the knowledge as part of their ongoing training, I think it will make them be doulas for longer. It will make them better doulas, but also in their lives. It will make their lives more fulfilling and more happy.